Aloha, namaste. My name is Janapati Das. Welcome tonight to the Yoga Wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the class that we will be reading some verses and purport from the book, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, translated and purported upon by my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I offer my respectful obeisances to him. I'd also like to offer my most humble obeisances unto my spiritual teacher, Jagat Guru, Siddha Swarupananda, Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to offer my respects and respectful obeisances to you for tuning in. Tonight we will chant a little bit, just to start, as always, as instructed by our spiritual teachers, to engage in the process of hearing and chanting Krishna's names, known as Kirtan. So we'll do that, and then we will get a little bit into the Bhagavad Gita, read some verses, talk about that. It's always very wonderful and exciting to do. I always look forward to this very much. So let's go ahead and start with this. So please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsanamine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Bala Krishna Stayate Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsanamine Gaurakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prasayate Aya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda Aja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Bhakta Vrinda Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Nitai Gaur I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, welcome, Haribo Yolanda. So, we are reading from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, set on the battlefield of Kurukshetra with Krishna and Arjuna, disseminating spiritual knowledge. Krishna is disseminating spiritual knowledge to Arjuna, his disciple and friend. And so we are going to... I want to read from chapter 4 today, a chapter that's called, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. So, in this modern day of computers and internet, we actually have a lot, they call it the age of information, and it's quite the age of information. You know, there are, from what the amount of uploads and information on the computer is just staggering. Even when the internet was first discovered, it was staggering. But now it's just gotten into a huge, it's a universe of information, right? And with things like ChatGPT that works so super fast and accumulates information, picks and chooses all the information to summarize information so quickly within a 2 seconds or something like that. It's pretty amazing. So there's a lot of information, there's a lot of knowledge, and we're, in this day and age of information, everybody's an expert on everything. It's sort of the, you know what I think age. You know what I think? You can doom scroll on your page and go to all kinds of videos and whatnot, and there are just thousands and tens of thousands of people wanting to give their information or their understanding or their knowledge of the topic at hand, and as if it's pretty fascinating to me, because how social media has kind of bedoozled, is the right word? Bedoozled or whatever, sort of created this illusion of authority in the minds of people, that if for some reason, if I just put my post down in the tens of thousands of posts, comments on this section, it'll clear everything up. It's like, you know what I think. That's what you know what I think. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada made this very clear. My spiritual master also says this too, that even the drunk in the street has an opinion, right? They have information that they want to share with you. So, but this is different, and the wealth of material knowledge out there is not what we talk about when we talk about transcendental knowledge. Transcendental knowledge is the absolute truth. It is the information that comes from Krishna. It is the emanation from Krishna via the lips of the spiritual master. In this case, our Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he is also acting as a spiritual master for Arjuna and imparting to him transcendental knowledge because Arjuna was ready for it. And in this same chapter, I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead real quickly, just because I always say it, but I usually paraphrase it, so I'll give you the exact truth. He tells Arjuna to just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. And this self-realized soul has seen the truth via the lips of his own spiritual master. So my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, is submissively has disseminated this information unto his disciples and students, myself included, and I try as best as I can to be submissive and render service unto him. But he also approached Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who translated this Bhagavad Gita and purported upon it, and rendered service submissively and then received the knowledge. And because he received it in a humble state of mind, free of envy, he was able to impart this knowledge to us. And here we have it right now. So we are eternally grateful for Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and eternally grateful for my spiritual master, Siddhaswarapananda. And so this is what we're going to be reading about today. And this is what this chapter is about: transcendental knowledge and how it's received, because it is completely different than speculative knowledge. In fact, it's said time and time and again here that Krishna has made it clear to Arjuna that one cannot approach the absolute truth. One cannot understand the true knowledge by speculation or speculative knowledge, or by fruitive activities. But one has to render service. One has to approach a spiritual master and render service unto him. And Arjuna had sort of like, you know what I think syndrome. He was like, all of chapter 1 is Arjuna kind of going through his trip out, as students and disciples, we all go through this trip out and we have a dilemma, but we approach our spiritual master and we surrender to him and offer our questions, or our problems or whatever, in a humble state of mind, free from envy. And the spiritual master gives us, just like in this prayer, we're born in the darkness of ignorance, and our spiritual masters approach us with the torchlight of knowledge. This is this transcendental knowledge. This is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. And we can only receive it, you can be arrogant and say, oh, I'm having a good time in this cave, in this darkness of ignorance here. I know exactly where I'm going. I don't need the torchlight out of here, and then you're just lost going through these tunnels of the material world, not knowing where to go. The spiritual master comes to you and offers you the torchlight of knowledge. You should humbly accept it. So we are going to read from this transcendental knowledge chapter, starting from, I'm going to go back up a little bit here. I think I was going to start. No, that wasn't it. Where did I start? Sorry, maybe it was from 19. Okay, so yes, text 19, chapter 4, translation. I'll read through 3 or 4 of these verses, and then we'll go back and read the purports, some of the purports, and discuss it. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, one is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every act whose every act is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said by sages to be a worker whose fruit of action is burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. Text 20, abandoning all attachment to the results of his activities, ever satisfying and independent, he performs no fruit of action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. Text 21, such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. Text 22, he who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is free from duality and does not envy, who is steady both in his success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. So, lots of really wonderful verses in there. Let's go back, starting at text 20. And I like this because it says, one is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every act is devoid of desire for sense gratification. He is said to be a worker whose fruit of action is burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. And there is a really nice, I love looking up the meanings of the Sanskrit words. And here, Bhaktivedanta has the word sankalpa, determination. So the worker, or here Krishna is telling Arjuna that he actually goes into a lot of different things in the chapters before and after this particular chapter about the idea of activities in spiritual service. And that's why it said is the acts are devoid for desire of sense gratification. And so there should be also determination, a dedication, a focus, a one-pointed focus on the activities that the living entity is engaging in. And the purpose of this activities is whether they understand the true knowledge, the transcendental knowledge that is being received to them. So in full knowledge, in other words, the worker, the living entity is either going to do two things. He's going to do an activity under the influence of Maya Devi, or material energy, for his own glory and satisfaction. That is a desire or lust for material sense gratification. Or they're going to dovetail their activities in the service of Krishna, and that's bhakti yoga. Or more specifically, as in the Bhagavad Gita talked about, is karma yoga, or the activities done in the service of God. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that I want you to fight for me without attachment for the results, because this is your activity. You're a warrior, you're a fighter, you are, this is what you are trained in. And so for every living entity, most specifically in the human form of life, we all have activities. I'm a teacher. Some people may be an administrator, they might be a farmer, they might be a person who lays cement on the ground, worker doing labor outside. But whatever the service, or whatever the activity, or whatever the action that you're doing, you can do that for Krishna, which is a really wonderful thing. It's a form of meditation and it's very joyfully performed to be able to do that in the service of Krishna. So one is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every act is devoid for desire for sense gratification. So obviously the sense is, it's not that there is a, that you're like this yogi who's, Arjuna was kind of like, I want to go to the forest and, be this yogi and not do anything. But Krishna was like, well, you're going to have to do something anyways, because you're going to be living in the forest and you're not a yogi, you're a warrior. So, you're still going to have to act, but you won't be acting under my direction. You'll be acting under your own desires for the sense gratification of protecting, so-called protecting the bodies of all the warriors and family members that he thought he was trying to save out on the battlefield. So, so that is a sense gratification, because it's pleasing to his senses to know that he's not killing his family members, whereas another person might be doing the same kind of activities, or he could even be a warrior but be fighting for his own glory, or like some of these warriors that attack kingdoms and hoard gold, and they're just like, we know people in the Vedic stories that are like this. There was Hiranyakashipu. We just passed Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day, right? And there was a great demon Hiranyakashipu, and he was definitely doing he was a great warrior, and he was a great administrator and whatnot, and demon. He was very powerful, and he had subdued all the demigods, but he didn't do that as the glory of Krishna, for the glory of Krishna. He tried to do it for the glory of himself. He was, I am God. He was telling his little son, who do you get your strength from? And Prahlad Maharaj was just like, I get the strength. He's 5 years old, but he's not being able to be killed by all of Hiranyakashipu's minions and tricks. This very powerful demon who could subdue all the demigods couldn't take out his 5-year-old son, because he was protected by Krishna. And he said, well, I'm protected by God, just like you. Well, he didn't, Hiranyakashipu didn't like to hear that. No, this is God. I am God. This is all for my enjoyment. This is my Leela, or this is my enjoyment, right? So here Krishna is saying that it's said by sages, or the great munis, right? The great spiritual masters, to be a worker whose fruit of action is burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. So not only is it free from sense gratification, but the activity of doing karma yoga, or dovetailing your will to Krishna's will, burns up the fruit of activities, the karmic reactions. Let's read a purport from Bhaktivedanta. Only a person in full knowledge can understand the activities of a person in Krishna consciousness, because the person in Krishna consciousness is devoid of all kinds of sense gratificatory propensities. It is to be understood that he's burned up the reactions of his work by perfect knowledge of his constitutional position as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he understands that I am the child of God. I belong to God. Everything I have belongs to God. And we actually, there is a, just to jump really quickly ahead into this other verse that we were talking about, text 21, such a man of understanding with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled gives up all sense of proprietorship of his possessions and acts only for the bare necessities of life. So that is reflective of the fact that in the Sri Ishopanishad, it is stated that everything animate and inanimate is owned and controlled by God. So the person understands. So I'm going to paraphrase that one again because I haven't memorized it. But it's like the person who understands that knows their allotment. They know how much they've been given, and they don't strive. Like it also said by Rupa Goswami, that you shouldn't try to over-endeavor for material necessities. Karmically, those things will come to you, regardless of whatever, and karmically, the bad things will come to you. So there's no real need to over-endeavor to try to, strive for economic development and sense gratification, because those things will kind of automatically be there. If you're going to eat food, the taste will be there. You know, you're going to enjoy it, but you don't need to you don't have to stress for it. It doesn't become the end all of all things, right? It's actually about Krishna. And what are you doing for Krishna? And you are satisfying Krishna's senses. So, and you know, when a person understands this by this transcendental knowledge, by this they're in full knowledge received from their spiritual master, that I am not. That's the first thing that Krishna teaches Arjuna. I am not this body. You are not this body. This body is a temporary vehicle you are in right now, and you're driving this kind of a shit vehicle. Sometimes when it gets older, it definitely is. And that is your real position is as a eternal spiritual entity, eternal. There was never a time when you did not exist, and there will never be a time when you do not exist. But your body will be destroyed, right? And this is a lot of this is reiterated and talked about in chapter 2. So if you want to go back and you want to read these things about the spirit soul and about the relationship between the spirit soul and the temporary material body, you can do that. It's really great. He is actually learned who has attained to such perfection of knowledge. So there we go, the transcendental knowledge. So you could be learning all kinds of things in the material world. A lot of it may be speculative and wrong, actually, because it's just made from a mental concoction. Or you could receive the true spiritual knowledge, right? And that kind of wisdom, that kind of knowing is called jnana. Gana is a Sanskrit word that means to know. So a true jnani is a person that has this perfection of knowledge from their spiritual master, and they apply it accordingly. So Arjuna was truly a jnani because he was receiving this knowledge, and he was able to carry that knowledge with him to fight in the battle of Kurukshetra according to what his spiritual master Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna, had required him to do. Development of this knowledge of the eternal servitorship is compared to fire. Such a fire, once kindled, can burn up all kinds of reactions to work. And I like that because in the Vedic tradition you have the fire sacrifices, and you would, when you go to a wedding or you go to some different fire sacrifices, they sacrifice things, they throw things into the fire to burn, right, as an offering. So you can offer, it burns up these karmic reactions. You can just throw them in the fire, right? And it's beneficial to you. So, continuing, abandoning all attachment to the fruit, results of his activities ever satisfied and independent, he performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So this is very reflective. In chapter 3, they talk about karma yoga, in chapter 5 also, and how this all applies. But the fruit of action is the activities that goes back to this word karma, right? The activities that we do in this material world and who we do them for and why do we do them, right? Most people are like in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. There is a story of the two birds, right? There's a bird, which is the living entity on the branch eating the fruits of the material world. And behind him is his friend, the super soul, Sri Krishna, watching, always with him, waiting for him to turn around and focus back on him. And this is this concept of fruits, of the things that we engage in the material world, the sense gratifications that we seek, whether it's sex or food or sleep or any of these kind of things. But it's not really even the things that are a problem, but of why we get them, why we strive for them, right? And this comes from this misunderstanding of thinking we are the material body and the mind and not spiritual in essence. So because we think we're this temporary covering, we strive for material things, which just brings us more and more misery. It's like my spiritual master has likened it to a bird in a bird cage. So the living entities in the bird cage, and we spend so much time painting the bird cage with gold glitter and washing it and making it really nice and very pretty, and we put in new, paint, gold paint or whatever, and we put little diamonds on it, or, it's like we spend so much time trying to take care of our body, whether it's, go to the gym, got the muscles, and, make ourselves look sexually attractive, eating the food we want to eat, or, whether it's, however it is, whether we're trying to make our body look good or whether we're not keeping our body in good shape, but we're just indulging in different fruitive activities to try to satisfy the emptiness of this dying bird. The bird is not getting any bird food, right? So it's not getting any spiritual food. The spirit soul is not getting spiritual food. Where does that come from? It comes from the Bhagavad Gita. It comes from Krishna. It comes from the practices of sadhana bhakti, the japa and the chanting of Krishna's names, especially chanting of Krishna's names, because these are all non-different than Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna is the ultimate source of all the spiritual energy, including ourselves as spiritual beings. So we need to be able to engage in these activities that our spiritual master, this transcendental knowledge that has been received from our spiritual masters and from the spiritual masters in general, and from Sri Krishna, every day. Just like we have to get up in the morning and brush our teeth or get some sleep at night and drink water for our body. It's important to take care of our body because our body has been given to us by Krishna. And so we should, this is what Krishna is also telling Arjuna, use your body, use your mind, use your talents, use all your activities that are material in the service of Krishna, in the service of me. And so while we're in the material world, we should remember and use these things that we have, everything we have, in the service of God, because that is our true life. It is true transcendental knowledge. And I was thinking of that quote from Lord Jesus Christ about if they asked him if he was, I know a man, I remember the quote exactly. I know a man who went to the seventh heaven, whether he was, it's Paul, in or out of his body, I do not know. But if he was in the body, then he should be remembering God, right? So I'm probably slaughtering that paraphrase, but if somebody has that quote, they can put it in the comment section. The freedom, so here's Bhaktivedanta's purport. This freedom from the bondage of actions is possible only in Krishna consciousness when one is doing everything for Krishna. So let me read that again, because that just basically summarizes everything I just said. This freedom from the bondage of actions, right, our karmic reactions, is possible only in Krishna consciousness when one is doing everything for Krishna. It's very nice. A Krishna-conscious person acts out of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore he has no attraction for the results of the action. That's why the Krishna is waiting as a bird, waiting there. He's a true friend and source of all happiness. And so when you return to that, remember that true happiness, you're not really interested in the fruits of the tree so much. He is not even, and this is where it says in the other page that the person acts only on the bare necessities of life. So just keeping the mind and body together, right? You have to eat and sleep, and if you're gonna have kids, and you have to have sex life, and there's So there are things that you do, but you don't go over and above it. You're not overly attached to it. And there's a story in the Krishna book, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Brahmin Sudama, who was so poor that his wife was asking him to go and ask Krishna for some help. And Sudama Brahmin was only thinking of Krishna as his dearmost friend and, source of all happiness. And he didn't really want to do that, but he did it to please his wife, I'll go see Krishna. It'd be nice to see Krishna anyway. So he went there, and Krishna knew, he was so pleased to see his devotee that he gave him that wealth, with the knowledge that he knew that whether Sudama Brahman had $1 million, billion, $1 trillion, and it was a wealth that so much that he was given by Krishna, was irrelevant to him, whether he had nothing or he had anything. So, but he was given everything, and he still used it all. He was not attached to it. He still was able to use it all in the service of Krishna, right? Which is, very difficult for a lot of us. If we got a lot of wealth, we're like, woo, party time, right? So, and this is also reflective in all the great Vedic kings, the Rajas, Maharajas, the great emperors of the past, like Maharaj Parikshit and King Yudhisthira and Maharaj Yudhisthira, some of these great kings from the Vedic civilizations. They had wealth. They were world emperors, so they had wealth, just unbelievable amount of wealth. I mean, the people like Jeff Bezos and they're all like penny poppers compared to the amount of money that these emperors had. I mean, just a huge amount of wealth. But at the end of the day, when they had they were coming to the end of their life, they knew, okay, it's time to get cut out and go focus on Krishna. Specifically, I did my service as a king and an administrator and a kshatriya in service of Krishna, householder. But now it's time for me to be a renunciate. And they basically took off all their robes. They left all their wives, all their children, all their money, everything, walked off in a loincloth to the forest and maybe a water pot or something, and just basically meditated in the forest. This was the complete renunciation that they had, So they don't, you have to, keep things together in this material world, but you don't have to become overburdened with anything. So a Krishna conscious person, okay, so I read that. He is not even attached to his personal maintenance, for everything is left to Krishna. Nor is he anxious to secure things, nor to protect things already in his possession. He does his duty to his best ability and leaves everything to Krishna. Such an unattached person is always free from the resultant reactions of good and bad. It is as though he were not doing anything. This is a sign of akarma, or actions without fruitive reactions. Right? So that's an interesting thing. The whole idea about karma, akarma, what's karma, and that's a class in itself, because most people don't even know really have the right understanding of what karma is. Any other action, therefore, devoid of Krishna consciousness is binding upon the worker, and that is the real aspect of the karma as explained herein before. So that's like, the real binding activities. So Krishna was saying what you're about to do as going off to the forest is actually the karma. It's not activities sanctioned by me or by anybody, really. So last two verses here. Yeah, and we'll wrap it up. Such a man of understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over his possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus, working, he is not affected by sinful reactions. So everyone else, just so many people in the world are not, are completely driven by their mind. It's a saying in the Bhagavad Gita also that the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. And in cases of in most cases, all you got to do is doom scroll down through those reels in YouTube and whatnot, and people screaming at each other and getting out of the car and fighting and whatnot. They're not really using their intelligence correctly, and their mind is like completely in control in a bad way. They definitely feel like they have proprietorship over everything around them, and even their thoughts. And they're not into living in the bare necessities of life. So, I mean, generally, a lot of people who have very minimal amount of things are not really happy with that. Actually, and even people who have millions and millions of dollars or billions of dollars are not happy with that either. They never have enough. They feel like, you could be making $100,000, $200,000 and feel like you still don't have enough money. So, but this is talking about a person with understanding of this transcendental knowledge. They have their mind. They put their mind in its place. They are able to use their mind in the proper service because of the intelligence telling them, don't go that way. Do it this way. Engage your service in Krishna's thing, and the mind becomes very friendly when you do that. If you're just like, the mind's like, oh, that looks pretty good. How about I do that instead? And you're like, no. The intelligence is like, no, right? So that takes practice, right? And a lot of the practice is not done artificially, because Arjuna has said, to try to control the mind is like to control the wind. But Krishna has stated that the process of Krishna consciousness, specifically as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to chant in this age of Kali and chaos and quarrel, to chant Krishna's names, and this is very attractive to the mind. So we can do that, and we can always remember Krishna much easier. A Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results in activities. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme. Therefore, the part played by him as a part and parcel of the whole is not by his choice, but is chosen for him by the Supreme. It is done only through his agency. So I'm going to read just a little bit more of the purport of the next verse, just so we can wrap this up. So we're running out of time. He who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, and who is free from duality and does not envy. So this is coming back to this point, the envy, right? Envy is it's considered to be in the Vedic system as one of the gates to hell, and a lot of the other gates are connected to this envy, including anger and lust, and envy, this desire, which is really a problem for living entities in the material world, of being envious of God. They want to be God. They want the things that God has. They want to be able to be the supreme enjoyer. Therefore, there is the envy. And this envy, when manifested fully in material consumption, is destructive. It's just straight up destructive. The envy and the lust for controlling and enjoying in this material world. People do not make this connection with the fact that there is so much destruction of the planet, of wars, racism, whatever the crazy doom-scrolling chaos and quarrel and confusion that you see is all, social media is based on envy of one another. And this is all extremely destructive. And so, but what Krishna is saying here is that a person who is focused, right? They're not attracted. They're not like, my spiritual master made this analogy that the spiritual, a lot of spiritual lessons can be learned on the playground. One of them is the seesaw. The seesaw is that like dated thing. Maybe some of those older people on this will know what that is. Seesaw is like you sit on both ends. Kids sit on both ends of the board and they push themselves up. One kid goes down, the other kid goes up. So it's kind of like that. He said sometimes you're going up and you're like, whoa, I'm going up. But eventually you have to come down and the other kid's like, oh, I'm a bummer that I'm down. But wait a minute, I'm going up. And so life is like this. You're going up, you're going down, you're going up, you're going down. You have your happiness, you have your distress. That's your duality of the seasons of your life. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But a devotee of Krishna who has focused their life on the transcendental knowledge of their spiritual master, who has taught them, this is what you need to do in your life. And applied that, they are not affected by these seasonal things. They, it's not like it's a bummer that I'm enjoying life right now. No, you enjoy it, but you don't become overly attached by it. If it's like down and you're having a bummer, it's a bummer. It does suck. We know that, but it's not like you're like, oh, my life is over. You know that these things are going to come and go, and you have to have an equilibrium. You have to have there's a couple of Sanskrit words in here that's like sthita or sama, which are related as being steady and calm and tranquil in your duty. And here's what Krishna was telling Arjuna: be steady. Don't be affected by the dualities of the situations that are going on. Be focused on your work in your service to me, and you will have all success. That's basically what it is. And the real success is love for Krishna. It is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. It's not just a place that we're going to. It's a remembering. It's a realization. This is my eternal existence, and I have forgotten this. And now I'm remembering it. How wonderful it is. How wonderful the message of the Bhagavad Gita is. It's this love song between ourselves, the living entity, and Krishna. And this is the way by which we have to clean our clouded mirror of the mind, that's been covered over by our envy, our lust, our desire to lord and control in this material world. So this is a very wonderful, wonderful scripture, Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much. We'll just chant really quickly before it gets too late. And Hari Bol. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Haribo, thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening tonight. Namaste.